Hello and welcome to the Calmcast, a time to feel calm and think clearly. I'm Clare, the Queen of Calm, a transformational life coach. I was a burnt-out head teacher who finally made the journey to calm after years of trying, and I want to prevent you from having to do the same. The Calmcast is a series of short explorations, gently guiding you back to your natural state, which is calm and clarity. Just listen like you would listen to music, with an open mind and curiosity. There's nothing else to do. Now let's relax into today's episode. So today, a simple equation for performance, explored, of course, from the perspective of the three principles of thought, consciousness, and universal mind, universal intelligence. And so much nicer, I think, to explore performance from this perspective than from the generally held view of performance. Like, it looks like a lot of hard work, doesn't it? Performance, no matter what aspect of life you are in, it looks like, in order to excel, to perform well in that world that you live in, whether it's your work, whether it's some sport, whether it's music, whether it's actual performing, acting, or whatever it is, it really does look like a lot of hard work to achieve what we might want to achieve in whatever realm we're exploring. And that can lead us down a path of hard work. Now, I am not at all condemning hard work or putting some effort in. Like I work very hard, although I'll be honest and say that none of it feels hard anymore. It really doesn't. It used to, but it doesn't feel hard anymore. I find that I'm in this place of flow much of the time, and that the things I decide to do, to create, to produce, to put out there seem to come from this space. It's a nice space, and nothing much I do now feels uncomfortable. Like, I don't feel like I have to force myself to do things, which is nice. So performance can look like a lot of hard work. It can look like it's change as well, can be part of it, can't it? Because I think, if we think we're not doing okay in some aspect of life, it feels like we've got to change ourselves, sometimes quite dramatically. Like for me, that performance piece was around trying to be more productive. I'm just very aware I have quite a tickle up my nose right now, and I'm contemplating whether I need to sneeze or not, and whether I need to mute the mic while I do that, so you don't all get an explosive noise in your ears. But I think it's just going to itch itself away. So for me, performance was definitely focused on productivity. Like, I felt I was underperforming in terms of motivation, getting enough done, not procrastinating, that kind of thing. And I remember having thoughts about that way, way before I started my own business. I remember definitely calling myself lazy in my head. I had a story about me being lazy. And if you'd if you'd stood by me for one day watching my crazy life at the point in which I thought I was lazy, you would have gone, goodness gracious, there's not a lazy person there. Like, when I look back now, I was doing so much, managing, especially when the kids were very little, managing a young family, a full-time job. Bless my ex-husband, who wasn't perhaps able, I now see it as able, it wasn't deliberate, able to support me on my mission, because I was on a mission. He perhaps wasn't on the bus with me. It wasn't his fault, it was me. I was very much on a mission to be, I don't know, to be somewhere in life that wasn't where I was then. And I tried a lot of things to overcome my issues with performance, looking outside of me for the answers, looking into books and looking into strategies and tools and techniques and looking into the past to try and resolve my performance issues. Um, I guess it's only recently I've come across this particular equation that I'm going to share with you today a couple of times. Um, More recently in John Whitmore's book, Coaching for Performance, I think it's called. But I previously heard it from Jamie Smart, I think in Clarity, possibly in Results, one of his books. And it's really got, I'm really seeing that in a new light, is why I'm here sharing that with you today, that I really am now seeing that in a different way. So when we're looking outside of us, what we're doing really is creating more noise in our system. Because if we're encouraging ourselves to take on tools or techniques or practical ways in which to make ourselves perform better, then we are getting this system to be, our psychological system to be noisier and noisier and noisier in that seeking of um, making ourselves better. Now, here's the equation, because I think before I say any more, it's important to share the equation. So the equation is performance equals potential minus interference. So we've talked a bit already about performance. We want to just do better in life, don't we? A lot of the time. And that's okay. It's okay to be aspirational. It's okay to want to do better. It's okay to want to do well in our business. Nothing wrong with any of that. The trouble is that we're trying to address that by looking for the answers outside of us, and that's never going to be the answer. It isn't. Um, and our potential, which is performance equals potential minus interference, our potential is so much more than we think it is. And notice the word think is there, because our thoughts create a concept of us that does not even closely touch our potential, because our potential is infinite. So the great thing and the tricky thing about this is that I'm talking here about something that you will never experience. You will never reach your full potential. It's an absolute, and it's a thing that, isn't it, that people say, you reach your full potential. Well, your potential is the energy of the universe, is the aliveness of nature, is, you know, your potential is the fact that your body does all these things without you interfering with it at all, like breathing and heart beating and blood flowing around your body and your food being digested in your stomach. All these things are happening in nature that you don't have to have anything to do with. This massive planet we're sitting on is going round the sun. Like, what the heck? It's just like it's amazing, and it's spinning at the same time, which you're not doing. Like, it's realizing that that energy, that potential is inside you. And thinking back to when you were a very small person, a baby or a toddler or whatever, realizing that that's when you were probably most connected to your potential. And you'll see that if you spend any time with a baby or toddler, they're not held back by anything, are they? They just don't care. You have to have eyes. Once they're moving, you have to have eyes in the back of your head, because they don't look at a thing to climb and think, oh, well, not really sure whether I can do that. Or, I'm not sure whether I'm capable, or, are my arms and legs long enough? Or they just don't do that. They just they just go. They just go for it, don't they? And that can mean, you do have to have eyes in the back of your head. I didn't so much with my daughter, but I did with my son, who, who was, um, was much more adventurous, I think. My daughter was just a happy little thing who wasn't really bothered for any of that, really, because she was just very content, whereas he was quite frustrated and wanted to climb and go up things. Um, but they're none of them, they're not held back by any of that, are they? They're not held back by interference. Now, the outside in concept of interference is other people and circumstances and my past and who I am and all these other things that are outside. They're not the only thing that's in the way of you performing, for your performance to equal your potential, is thought. Now, you might be thinking, well, what about physical stuff? And if I'm not going to be I'm not going to be an Olympic swimmer. Although who knows, maybe if I did want to be one and I worked really hard, maybe I could be. Probably in the OAPs section of the Olympics these days. But who knows, maybe I could have been an Olympic swimmer if I'd really put a lot of effort into swimming, but I didn't. Wasn't interested in swimming. But so you might say, well, there's physical aspects to something. Yes, there is. But I'm listening to this book at the moment, this Coaching for Performance by John Whitmore, and I'm really enjoying him talking about how, yes, if you're a sports person, because he was a racing driver and his connections are a lot with sport, yes, there's some physical capability in any sport, but actually the psychological aspects, what they would call the mindset, is actually so much more important, because really, if you think about it, interference gets in the way of your training regime. It gets in the way of you eating properly. If we're talking about performance in the physical realm, then all of that interference does get in the way of you doing the right things at the right time to ensure your physical performance. So it's all interconnected. But ultimately, the interference is thought. And I was talking to a client about this recently and saying that all we need to do is start to become aware of that interference, just to notice it, just to notice that, when you get an instinct about something, but then the interference comes in, doesn't it, and tries to cover over that. I'm really starting to notice that. Like this morning, I'd received an email from somebody who keeps asking for help with something, and I've offered them some time with me that's paid, and this morning I repeated that offer because I'm not willing to keep on giving them more and more and more advice by email. It's not helpful anyway, because it's very difficult to explain by email what I'm trying to explain, but also I'm not doing that anymore. It's my time and it's precious. And, I had the initial thought to say, you just need to offer us some time. And the thoughts came in to not do that, but I just ignored them and I did it. So the interference was ignored. And really, that's really all it is. It's awareness, it's noticing what's getting in the way and then ignoring it. I know that sounds like a doing, but as we change our relationship with our thoughts, as we start to see that they're not personal, they just happen to be there because they just happen to be what you've learned. Your thinking doesn't know what you're capable of. I keep saying that time and time again. Your thinking does not know what you're capable of. You are so much more than your thinking. That's the interference. So remember this equation: your performance equals potential minus interference. And the less you are involved in the interference, even in trying to change it, you don't need to do that either, the more connected you'll be to your potential. As I say, I'm not sure you can ever really fully reveal it because it's infinite, but you can get closer and closer. And that's a great space to live life from, I think. Getting curious about how close you can get to your potential. How cool is that? So take care. Lots of love, and I hope you found that helpful. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. There's nothing to do now but bring some awareness to how this is working out in your life. Listen regularly to experience longer and longer periods of calm. This has been the Calmcast with Clare Downham, Queen of Calm. Take care and keep listening.